Brandon Thomas and Daniel Samper head into the depths of time and space as Aquaman and Aquawoman find themselves adrift in the Confluence with no way to get home. Brandon Thomas unfortunately can't spin the same magic he's been doing with The Outsiders and Duke Thomas, as I found the whole story rather disappointing, especially given how much I like Jackson Hyde and how much I've come to like Andy within Future State. The book felt like it was missing something, and after reading it twice, I figured it was the lore building that the other Future State books have been so good with. Here we're just thrust into the middle of the story, and just as you're getting settled into the heroes dealing with their personal problems, they're catapulted into time and space and the multiverse thanks to the Confluence, which sounds like a really interesting setting for an Aquaman book, but is very poorly explored, only merely glossed over what exactly it is and where they are. The issue would have been infinitely better if it was just Jackson and Andy working through their differences together while hunting Black Manta, which is hinted at and looks like where the book was going to go, but it is immediately forgotten about. While the story was rather lacking for me, Daniel Samper's artwork was top-notch as always. I'm a big fan of weird and wonderful sea creatures, and Daniel goes a little crazy with fun-looking shark monsters and giant island-shaped monsters. His panel layouts were also quite fun as well, with panels overlapping one another and covering each other up, which is something you seldom see happen. Future State Aquaman issue 1 was a rather disappointing foray into the water worlds of the future, lacking any real direction and instead just throwing a bunch of story premises together to see which will stick, where separately all of those stories could have made excellent additions to Jackson Hyde and Andy's history. Hopefully the second and final issue of the series will be a little bit more focused and deliver a little something more for me. I'm going to give this issue a 5 out of 10. Future State Aquaman issue 1 finds Jackson Hyde escaping Neptune yet again, fighting off the guards and the sharks as he races towards the surface, seeing the sunlight and something in the water as he is dragged back down into the dark depths, laughing as he is imprisoned yet again. Jackson is taken to see the Warden, who wonders what the prisoner finds funny about his 300 escape attempts so far. Jackson says that his name is the Aquaman, but the Warden finds that curious since the man has never once offered up his real name or rank until now. Jackson says that everything has now changed, thinking the man should know him before it happens because she's out there and she's coming for them. The Warden wonders who, as 6 years ago, Black Manta escapes prison yet again. Aqualad awakens, finding Aqualass unconscious in the water. Andy soon awakens as well, and Jackson finds it lucky that she's still alive, reminding her that he said that he would deal with Manta personally. Andy says that Jackson's fighting with his father definitely has been going well for them so far since he's still out there, but Jackson fires back, since Andy's father Aquaman has been fighting him since before she was born. Jackson knows that none of this is right and the girl won't follow his lead and take any of his training seriously. Andy says that maybe it's him that's the problem and he won't ever be Aquaman, and as a secret no one wants to tell him. Thanks to her anger, she summons a horde of sharks that begin circling Jackson but quickly sends them away, diving into the water as she apologizes, saying that it was an accident. Jackson chases her, asking why she never told him that she can control sea life like her father. Andy says that Arthur communicates with sea life, but she actually controls them, and there is a big difference since it's wrong when she does it. She doesn't want Jackson to judge her about it, but the man says he wasn't. He just wants to make sure she is safe and make sure she makes it back to her parents after the mission. She wonders if this is some stupid boy thing where he needs to protect her, but Jackson says that it was actually her mother Mera who told him to protect her, and she doesn't need to be afraid of telling him what's going on since he remembers what it was like to be in her position. Jackson suddenly feels a frequency shift as the waters change to a green color. Surfacing, they find the sky is now pink as well, so they dive back down and discover many new species of fish that don't belong there or even on their world. Jackson doesn't think they're actually on their Earth anymore as he learns that they are in the Confluence. The Warden finds it remarkable that they discovered the Confluence, the ocean that connects all time and space, and it explains so much, wishing that he had talked with him sooner since his time would have been greatly improved in the jail. He wonders if the man knows what the Confluence gives, and Jackson knows it gives people with clarity, as before, Jackson and Andy rest on a beach on a faraway world in the Confluence. Andy wonders if they are ever going to get home, but Jackson says that time travel and alternate dimensions are common for people like them, and they don't even get into the Justice League without going through something like this. Andy knows that that's a lie, but Jackson says that that's only what he's heard. Jackson tells tells the warden that they traveled from world to world helping those who needed it, being responsible for only each other. On one of these worlds, however, the heroes are pursued by a giant sea monster with an island on its back. It catches them in its tentacles, which begin to paralyze them, making Andy feel sleepy. Jackson manages to free himself from the Trendles, grabbing onto Andy's leg and trying to free her as well. Andy weakly says that they won't make it as she powers up her hand, apologizing as she cuts her own leg off to free Jackson, who falls into the water below. In the present, Jackson says he knows what Andy's final words to him were, but the warden finds him wasteful. Jackson strains against his chains, screaming at the man as the chains begin to break. The warden knows he misunderstood him, and this is an advanced society, and he's speaking of untreated trauma without proper remedy, and what he means is they have a way to help him and help him forget these things that have destroyed him and wasted him. And had he been more forthcoming with this information at the beginning, he wouldn't have had to suffer. Jackson thinks that they just have some magic pill that makes the bad thoughts go away, and the being says that's exactly what it is, and they aren't savages like he thinks. He tells Jackson that nothing is going to happen there and their security is absolute and unmatched, so he needs to let them help him. Jackson appreciates the help, but just figured it all out, knowing that he thought he lost his mind this whole time and thought that he was stronger than he is and used to be harder than he is right now. He considered it was the atmosphere or something to do with the planet that was taking his powers, but realized the problem was in his head the whole time, and he's just been in shock from his deep trauma. He says before, when he thought about failing Andy, he could barely move, and the restraints that were made for him were made for how strong the people thought he was at the time. He knows if Andy survived, he kept his promise to her parents and gave her everything he had and everything she needed to survive. Jackson strains against the chains, ripping them from their moorings, telling the warden that he's been given everything back now by Andy. He whips the chains at the guards before attacking the warden. He hits the man's throne behind him, destroying a piece of it and ripping 2 pieces of piping from it, as the being asks if she is there. Jackson remembers when he almost made it to the surface before, seeing a sign in the water that told him that Aquawoman lives, as he uses his waterbending powers to conjure up 2 swords with the pipes, confronting the guardsmen and not wanting to keep Andy waiting. Keep